file for an LLC, set up a business bank account, get insurance, design a logo and a website, etc., etc. Does that checklist sound familiar? It's what most people think they need to start a business. And sure, those are the tangible items you'll want to have when you launch. And they do matter a lot. But there's one thing almost everyone misses because they don't even know what it is. And that is learning how to turn strangers into customers predictably. When I started my business, I thought I was doing everything right. I made my checklist. I completed it. I had the legal setup, the logo, the website, the business cards, the whole package. And yeah, I got a few clients, but they all came from people who already knew me. Honestly, those people probably would have hired me without all that stuff done. Getting your first customers from people you already know isn't bad, don't get me wrong. It's great, and you should do it. Yeah, for sure. But it can't be your long-term client acquisition strategy because when your warm network runs out, you're out of luck. Things get quiet, fast. And that's when most people panic and think, maybe my website needs a redesign. Nope. Still wrong, because the real reason you'll stall, it's deeper. In this video, I'm going to show you what you need to build before any of the rest and how it changes everything about how you attract clients. Warm versus cold. When you first start your business, it's easy to think, man, this isn't so bad. People are hiring me. And honestly, at first, it feels like proof that you're doing everything right. The work's coming in, people will say yes, and maybe you're even getting some referrals. But here's the thing, those first few clients probably already know you. They're in your warm audience. They're your friends, old coworkers, and maybe people who were referred to you by someone who already trusts you. Heck, some of them might even owe you a favor. You know, they've seen your work. They believe you can deliver. Warm audiences don't need convincing. They're not evaluating your marketing. They're responding to a pre-existing relationship. It's kind of like being in your living room. Everyone there already knows you. They laugh at your jokes. They trust you to grab something from the fridge, and they know what to expect. That is your warm market. But the second you step outside your front door, everything changes. Now you're standing on the street, talking to people who don't even know that you exist. And even if they do finally notice you and don't work with you, it's not rejection, it's just indifference. They simply don't care. And that's your cold audience. Most business owners aren't ready for that moment. They think early success means their business model is solid, when really they've only tested on people who already believed in them. So here's what happens. Your first few wins feel great, and they should. You're making it happen. But then things start to slow down. Projects take longer to land. Referrals dry up. And you start wondering if maybe something's wrong with your pricing, or maybe it's your website. But it's not that. What it is, it's your warm network is finite. And that's okay. It's normal. But if your entire business depends on people who already know you, it's not built to last. The real test is learning how to take people who don't know you yet, complete strangers, and make them trust you enough to say yes. And that's when you go from getting lucky to building something sustainable. So how do you make someone who's never met you feel like they already know you and actually trust you enough to buy? Getting cold to warm up. When my warm network finally dried up, I was confused. I mean, I'd been in business long enough to know what I was doing, but all of a sudden the referrals slowed down and projects that used to just come easy stopped. I couldn't figure out why. I hadn't changed anything. I was still doing good work. I still had my website, my logo, my social media, and all the same stuff that, I thought had worked before. So what changed? I'll be honest, for a while, I thought maybe I was the problem. Maybe my pricing was too high. Maybe the market was changing. Maybe people just didn't need what I offered anymore. But none of that was it either. I eventually worked with a business coach who helped me see the real issue. And it was so simple, it kind of made me mad I hadn't realized it sooner. And he said, when you leave your warm network, you're walking into someone else's, and they already have their guy. So why the heck would they care about you? Well, that hit me hard, even though it's kind of painfully obvious once you hear it out loud, right? Warm clients buy because they already like, know, and trust you. Cold clients don't because they don't even know you exist. And even if they do find out that you exist, they just don't care. Getting a cold audience to show interest is kind of like building a fire. Your warm network is dry wood. It catches fast and burns hot. But once it's gone, you're left with cold and maybe even wet logs. You can't just spark those and expect them to light. You have to start small. You build kindling, little pieces that catch quickly. You feed it slowly, patiently, until it's strong enough to light the big logs. The logs and your audience need to warm up before they'll ever catch fire. It's not luck, it's not a fluke, it is a process. And once you realize that warming people up isn't something you hope happens, it's something you design, everything changes. But how do you do that? Turn strangers into customers. So how do you take someone who's never heard of you, never seen your work, never been referred, and make them feel like they already know and trust you? Well, you do it with your brand. And here's where most people say, huh? And that's because most people hear the word brand and they think, okay, logo, website, colors, got it. But that's not a brand. That's the wrapping paper. It looks great under the tree, but if it's empty inside, you don't know what's in the box. It gets confused all the time, and that's why so many people don't properly leverage the power of brand. Everyone who's just starting out thinks of their business in terms of tangible items. They think, I need a logo, a website, a business card, a sell sheet, a LinkedIn banner. That's the checklist. And you can fill out that whole checklist. You can even pay someone to do it for you and still completely miss the mark, because none of that matters if you don't understand how your products or services actually impact your customers' lives. If you don't know what problems your customers have, how your work solves those problems, and what changes for them when they work with you, then why would they give you any money? And that right there is the foundation of a real brand strategy. It starts with clarity on three things. One, who you're for, the exact person you're best at helping. Two, what problem you solve or the pain or frustration they're already feeling. And three, what changes for them when they work with you, the transformation that your work creates. You don't have to have perfect answers right away. Even starting to think about these puts you ahead of like 90% of business owners. If you want help walking through those exact questions, like who you serve, what they need, and how to position yourself around it, that's exactly what my free Business Backbone guide walks you through. I'll link it below. Once you know these answers, and a few others that we can get into in another video, well, that becomes your brand's strategy. And then you apply that strategy to all of your communication pieces. Your website stops being just a digital business card and it becomes a story about your ideal customer. Your content stops feeling random and it starts building trust. Even your visuals and tones of voice suddenly make sense because they're all working together to move your audience from cold to warm. And that's what a real brand does. It gives your business clarity, and that clarity creates trust, because trust doesn't come from just looking professional. It comes from being understood. When you get that right, when you truly understand your customers' real problems and how you can deliver the results they really want, it's then that you can stop chasing clients and start attracting the right ones. At this point in my business, I don't chase clients anymore. They find me. Every week I get messages from people who say, I've been following you for a while now and finally ready to work with you. And that is the power of brand strategy. It compounds, because when you build your business on clarity, when you show up consistently telling the same true story, your brand starts working even when you're not. This is not a quick fix. It is a long game, but it's the only game that lasts. And the best part, well, you can start building your brand even when you're doing the short-term tangible checklist stuff. So if you're serious about starting your business the right way, start with your brand strategy. Everything else builds from there. And if you want to hear what it actually looks like when you don't do that, and the mistakes that come with trying to grow without a clear brand, well, I'll break that down in the next video. It's an honest look at what I got wrong when I first started, and the lessons that completely change how I run my business today.